Bertrand and Pierre Emmanuel had nothing in common, until they discovered a few weeks ago that the same memories had marked their childhood behind the walls of this church in the suburbs of Lyon, east-central France.
The priest who officiated at the top abused a lot of children, dozens and dozens in fact.
What shocked me the most was when he tried to put his tongue in my mouth. He stroked my genitals. I couldn't avoid it. I wanted to run away, and at the same time I didn't know what to do. I was afraid that if I left that room, nobody would believe me.
I remember the smell of sweat. I remember contact with clothes. I remember his wandering hands under my shirt, which held me tightly against him.
He used to
put his leg behind me to block me, and he rubbed against me. I remember that very well. I still have the sensation of his genitals against me. He would say, "Tell me you love me." And then he would say, "You're my little boy. It's our secret. You mustn't tell anyone."
A secret that for decades has weighed on dozens of former scouts aged from 8 to 12, whom Father Bernard Prénat supervised from 1970 to 1991. A charismatic man much appreciated by those who entrusted their children to him, remembers one parishioner. Didn't anyone suspect anything then?
Of course there were people who knew. But nobody really said anything, because the priest really had a great aura. I'm sure there were parents who, when the children told them, said, "What are you talking about? It's not true."
I remember very well that it happened in this room, for instance, and also a couple of times in the corner of that other room. However noisy it was outside, here we were in silence, just like today. It still rings in my ears.
A silence which Didier has suffered from for over 30 years. He was abused from age 8 to 11. We meet him at the house of Bertrand, co-founder of the Parole Libérée, launched last December with other alleged victims of Bernard Prénat. Several of them have filed complaints against the priest for sexual abuse on minors under 15 years. Helped by psychologists, the group offers support and a platform of expression to the former praise of the priest. Within weeks, the association had received dozens of testimonies from alleged victims who had until now not dared tell their story or were not listened to by relatives.
We succeeded in getting people to talk and revealing these facts. We said, "This is the reality, this is the truth. This is what those children went through." So we can no longer be confronted by people who play down the facts. This is the letter that my parents sent in 1991.
François Deveau had spoken to his parents. They immediately wrote to the Diocese of Lyon to ask for the priest's suspension. Father Prénat confessed. The Archbishop of the time took him away from his parish. 6 months later, the priest returned to service. He continued to work and stayed in contact with children in other parishes in the region for 25 years. He was finally suspended from office in May 2015 by the current Archbishop, Cardinal Barbarin, but celebrated his last Mass in August. Put under investigation in January, Bernard Prénat has confirmed the allegations of sexual abuse and confessed to cases of rape, admissions which only add to those made 25 years ago, says his lawyer.
Si la justice n'a pas été rendue.
If justice has not been rendered until now, it's not Father Prénat who prevented it. From the moment he was uncovered, he confessed. He's a man who's been living with the offences that he committed for over 25 years. The odd thing is that he was granted a great deal of trust, as if nothing had happened. They thought that it was enough to relocate him, for things to fall into oblivion.
In the former parishes of Father Prénat, the case has caused astonishment and also some embarrassment.
All I can tell you is, let he who has not sinned cast the first stone. That's all. It's quite troublesome, but for us, he was a very good priest. We loved him very much, and we're really sorry he left. Our son was a choir boy, and he was very sad to see him go.
He loved the children liked him, and the catechism went well. I was 1,000 miles from thinking he could have done those things in the past. He was my superior. I was the assistant cleric. He was my pastor. It would have been a bit embarrassing to know that my priest had done this. It would not have been bearable. It was better not to know.
Several cardinals have since followed as the head of the Diocese of Lyon, to which the alleged victims of Bernard Prénat demand accountability today.
I'm mostly angry at the whole church system, at all the people who knew within the church. The bishop at the time, today's bishop. All these people let it happen. Why was this priest not kept out of the reach of children? Today it's a very serious question that has to be asked.
Cardinal Barbarin had claimed to have been informed of the acts of Prénat in 2014. He has just admitted in the French press that he knew from 2007. Adding in his own defense that the allegations were old and there had not been any new complaints or signs of recurrence. The Archbishop of Lyon declined our interview requests. We were directed instead to Régine Maire, in charge of the Prénat case and of listening to his victims for the diocese. Barbarin just followed previous policy, she says.
That kind of silence, this way of protecting the institution rather than the victims, is quite regrettable. But this was the fact.
A response that is just not enough for the alleged victims of Prénat. Several of them now intend to file suit against the Archbishop of Lyon and against Régine Maire for not denouncing acts of paedophilia. An announcement made a day after this interview.
The Cardinal, I believe he's aware of the risks involved. It could be complicity, if there's a judgment of crime protection or not reporting. He knows that. Well, I believe the risk is prison. So I think he realised, and that he is, yes, quite capable of putting forward his resignation if he must. After all, we're talking about the credibility of the Church.
A church from whom the members of La Parole Libérée want answers. Their complaints could also target some members of the Vatican whom they say had been informed. The Holy See has reconfirmed the obligation for bishops to report cases of child abuse to civil authorities. The trial of Bernard Prénat is imminent. For many of the alleged victims, the abuse is too old to be considered by the French courts. Pierre Emmanuel is one of those whose case is not prescribed. But for him, as for all the others, the Prénat case must resonate well beyond the court corridors.
Today, for me, it's already a victory to have been able to file suit and get his confession, and to know that eventually a move can be made at the level of religious authorities, to shed the light on everything that's been hidden for 25 years. For me, that's very serious, and that's why this action is so important, for the light to be shed, simply.